It takes a whole group of cowards to try and crush one fearless soul. That's the truth, chosen one, and it's exactly what's happening here. A pack of jealous people came together, thinking their numbers gave them power, but what they didn't realize is this. When a group unites against one person, they've already admitted that one person is greater than them all. Now imagine this for a moment, chosen one, a single torch burning in the dark, and yet it makes a circle of people panic, scramble, and blow with all their might to put it out. Doesn't that prove the fire was stronger than all their shadows combined? And here's a fact that hits deep. Studies show that envy doesn't just live inside one person, it spreads like a virus through a crowd. One person's jealousy ignites the others until they're all consumed by the same obsession. You. They couldn't ignore your presence, they couldn't silence your light, so they grouped up hoping their noise would drown you out. But in doing so, they revealed the truth. They've never come across someone like you before. They've never faced a presence so authentic, so unshakable that even united, they still can't win. And thank you, chosen one, for standing strong despite all of this. Don't forget to pay this message back by simply pressing the like and subscribe to help spread this truth to more souls. It's the responsibility of all of us to spread the light. And thank you, chosen one, for being part of this mission. You're part of a force, a movement the universe itself protects. Now, let's return to our topic. These jealous groups thought they were plotting against you, but really they were plotting their own downfall. Look back at history. The most famous collapses didn't come from some outside enemy storming the gates. It was always the group inside, consumed with envy, tearing themselves apart while targeting one person. From kings betrayed by their courts to visionaries undermined in their workplaces, it's the same story repeating. And every time the chosen ones not only survive, but rise higher while the jealous circle crumbles. Think about it. What kind of group mission is it when the assignment is destroy one individual? That's not a strategy, that's desperation. It's a sign of weakness, not strength. They may have thought their numbers made them powerful, but really they exposed how powerless they feel in your presence. Their alliance is built on nothing but jealousy, and jealousy always eats itself alive. Psychology proves it. Envy doesn't empower, it corrodes. The very fuel they tried to use against you is the same poison now burning through their circle. You didn't do anything to deserve this, chosen one. Your crime was existing too boldly in a world that thrives on masks and illusions. You shined too brightly in rooms where people wanted the spotlight for themselves. That's why they formed their little group. But the universe has a way of flipping the script. Those who tried to bury you are now sinking into the grave they dug with their own hands. And the irony? Their attempt to erase you only highlighted you more. Their whispers made your name louder. Their jealousy made your light brighter. This is why they're going down, chosen one. Not because you fought back with vengeance, but because the universe doesn't reward those who build alliances out of bitterness and hate. Look closely. Cracks are already forming in their circle. Distrust spreads among them, backstabbing starts, and one by one they'll point fingers at each other. What began as a united front against you will collapse into chaos, and when the dust settles, everyone will see it for what it was, an insecure group, destroyed by their own envy, while you stand untouched. They've never faced someone like you before, chosen one. Your authenticity made them uncomfortable, your presence shook their illusions, and your resilience proved their power was a lie. That's why they're obsessed, that's why they're panicking, and that's why their downfall is guaranteed. The universe doesn't play favorites, it plays fair, and fairness always exposes the weak when they gang up on the strong. So stand tall. You are the living proof that one true soul can withstand the weight of many false ones. Their downfall isn't just punishment, it's proof of who you are. Proof that you were never the problem. Proof that you're the kind of person they'll never run across again. And as they go down, their collapse will echo as a warning to every other jealous group that ever dares to target someone like you. Chosen one, before we break this down step by step, I want you to lock this truth in. What you're hearing right now isn't just another message, it's a mirror reflecting the battles you've lived through. If you've ever felt the weight of a jealous crowd trying to dim your light, then this is for you. Drop a comment below with the words, "They can't stop me," to seal your strength and let the universe know you're unshaken. And if this message hits your spirit, don't forget to bless the mission behind it, because every bit of support, whether small or big, fuels the fire to keep these truths alive. You're not just a listener, you're part of a force that refuses to be silenced. And here's the thing. If you really are who I believe you are, you'll feel the pull to stay until the very end, because what's coming will shake the mask off every jealous group that dared to target you. So, are you ready? Let's get into it. Number 1, you were never in their league, and that's what drove them mad. It doesn't take courage to fight someone at your level. It takes desperation to chase someone who was never in your league to begin with. That's the truth, chosen one. They made their biggest mistake the moment they assumed you were just another face in the crowd, someone they could size up, pick apart, and crush with the same petty tactics they use on each other. They thought you played the same game they play: status, numbers, appearance, clout, money. But you were never even on their board. That's why every one of their calculations fell flat. They were aiming at a target that doesn't exist because you don't live in their shallow categories. And when insecure people realize they can't measure you, they panic. Now imagine this, a group of gamblers sitting around a table betting their pride on the same old cards they've always used. Then you walk in and you're not even playing their game. You brought a different deck, a different table, and the room shifts. Suddenly, all their chips, their bets, their loud voices mean nothing. That's exactly how you shook them, chosen one. They were betting against someone who never even sat at their table. Here's a fact that stings them even deeper. Psychologists call this the misplaced threat effect. People don't just get jealous of those who have what they want. They get enraged by people who don't even want it, but shine anyway. That's why they've never run across someone like you before. You weren't chasing their spotlight, their trophies, or their cheap applause. You weren't even in the race. But by refusing to chase, you exposed how desperate they looked, scrambling for validation. You might be wondering, why does this upset them so much? The answer is simple. When your identity isn't fragile, when your confidence doesn't need their approval, it shows them how weak they truly are. Their sense of self is built on applause, likes, backslaps, and fake recognition. Yours is built on something untouchable: your authenticity, your wholeness, your refusal to bend to illusions. That's what terrifies them. They've built their lives on masks while you walked in without one, and the mirror of your presence shattered theirs. Let's be clear, you weren't supposed to survive without their approval. That was the script they wrote for you. You weren't supposed to rise unless they let you. You weren't supposed to keep going when they tried to cut off every door. But here you are. You're the living proof that their power was nothing but smoke. They expected you to crumble under rejection, but you stood taller. They thought you would beg to be let in, but you built your own lane. They imagined isolating you would make you weaker, but all it did was prove how unnecessary they really are to your growth. Their worst nightmare came true. You didn't need them. And the longer they watched you, the more their stomachs turned, because deep down they realized something humiliating. You weren't competing with them. You weren't even looking in their direction. And nothing cuts more deeply than realizing the person you're obsessed with doesn't even consider you an opponent. That's why their jealousy became venom. You didn't just outshine them, you made them irrelevant. Think of it like this: chosen one, a runner gasping for breath on the track, giving everything to stay ahead, only to realize the person they're chasing was never running at all. They were flying. That's what your presence did. You reminded them that in a world where they thought they were irreplaceable, they're just placeholders. You reminded them that one person can walk into a room and shift the entire atmosphere without even trying. And here's the brutal truth. They've never encountered someone like you because people like you don't fit into categories. You destroy the categories. You don't follow their rules, you rewrite them. You don't fight for a seat at their table, you build a whole new table. And when insecure people see that kind of independence, it drives them insane. Why? Because it reveals the one thing they can't face. Their lives are built on comparison, and yours isn't. Ask yourself this, chosen one. Why do they cling so tightly to their little groups? Why do they measure everything by status and numbers? Because deep down, they know they're empty without it. Their worth depends on the crowd. But you walked in alone and still outshone them all. That's why they had to team up against you. It wasn't power, it was fear. Fear that if they didn't unite, they would all be exposed one by one. And the more they tried to break you, the harder the universe flipped the script. Every attempt to sabotage you turned into evidence of their insecurity. Every smear campaign turned into free promotion of your name. Every wall they built only highlighted how unstoppable you were without them. The more they clawed, the more obvious it became. They had no control, no leverage, no category that could contain you. So understand this, their obsession with you was never about you being a threat to their prize. It was about you proving the prize itself was worthless. While they scrambled for scraps of attention, you were busy creating something that couldn't be bought, faked, or stolen: authentic power. And authentic power doesn't beg, doesn't compete, doesn't crumble. It simply is. That's why you're untouchable. And that's why they're going down. They built their schemes on the lie that you were just another player. But you were never in their league. You never needed their rules, their numbers, their approval. They wanted to trap you in their fragile world, but the universe had already set you apart. And now their jealousy is eating them alive while you rise untouched. They've never run across someone like you before, chosen one. That's why they can't stand you, and that's why they can't stop watching. They know the truth, but can't admit it. Your very existence exposes their weakness. You're the reminder that no matter how many gather against you, their numbers will never equal your strength. And as their downfall unfolds, the whole world will see what you've always known. You were never in their category to begin with. Number 2. Their attack was their silent confession. When many voices rise against one, it's never proof of the target's weakness, it's proof of the crowd's fear. That's the truth, chosen one. The moment they decided to come together and focus all their energy on you, they didn't realize they had already confessed something monumental. They confessed that they could not handle you alone. They confessed that your presence was too heavy for one insecure individual to carry. They confessed that they needed backup, not because you were wrong, but because you were powerful. Their attack wasn't strategy, it was surrender. And the irony is that while they thought they were cornering you, they were actually cornering themselves with their own admission. Now imagine this: a pack of wolves circling a single lion. If that lion were weak, would they need the whole pack? No. The fact they came together proves one thing: the lion's strength made them tremble. That's what your life has been, chosen one. You've been the lion in their story, and they needed a crowd just to feel safe enough to approach you. And here's another image. Imagine a group of people pointing all their flashlights at one candle, trying to drown out its glow. The truth: their very effort proves how bright that candle must be. If it weren't extraordinary, no one would bother. Ordinary doesn't require a strategy. Think about that. Nobody loses sleep over the average. Nobody calls secret meetings to plot against someone who blends into the background. Nobody forms alliances to attack someone they consider irrelevant. If you were truly ordinary, you'd be invisible to them. The fact they whispered, schemed, and coordinated their moves against you proves the opposite. You disrupted their sense of control. You forced them to admit, without words, that you are extraordinary. And here's where the psychology cuts deeper. Studies show that people unite in jealousy when they feel powerless alone. Envy doesn't build community, it builds conspiracies. The moment they leaned on each other's bitterness, it was a silent confession that none of them had the courage or strength to face you individually. They had to validate one another's lies because on their own, none of them had the conviction to stand against the truth you carry. Every rumor, every smear, every sly glance was their way of saying, "We are terrified of this person and we can't handle them on our own." The louder the attack, the clearer the confession. That's the irony they'll never admit. While they thought they were tearing you down, they were broadcasting your significance. They wanted people to see you as small, but the more they obsessed over you, the more obvious it became that you weren't small at all. After all, who devotes so much energy to destroying what doesn't matter? The answer is no one. And that's what people around them began to notice. Their obsession made bystanders ask, what is it about this one person that requires so much attention? That question alone is the confession they'll never escape. Now let's turn this inward for a moment, chosen one. You might have asked yourself, why me? Why did they feel the need to unite against me? The answer is brutal but freeing, because your resilience is a mirror they couldn't stand to look into. Your existence exposed how fragile theirs really is. Your growth reminded them of their stagnation. Your refusal to break under pressure proved that they could never stand on the same ground as you. They weren't attacking because you took something from them. They were attacking because you showed them what they never had in the first place. Imagine this again, a cracked mirror reflecting a flawless diamond. The mirror will always distort, always show broken edges, but the diamond remains whole. You are that diamond. They are the cracks. And the more they tried to distort you, the more their own fractures became visible to everyone watching. This is why their attacks have backfired time and time again. They thought they were painting you as weak, but what they really did was spotlight their own insecurity. The act of targeting you was their way of admitting your power. It was their confession that they couldn't ignore you, that your presence unsettled their comfort, that your very existence was a disruption to their illusions of control. They thought silence would protect you, but instead they shouted your name louder with every scheme. They thought lies would diminish you, but instead they revealed how much truth you carry. They thought isolation would starve you, but instead it starved them of credibility. And here's the bitter part for them. They didn't just attack you, they exposed themselves. They exposed their weakness, their envy, their dependence on each other. What kind of strength needs reinforcement just to aim at one person? None at all. That's weakness in disguise. And everyone watching can see it. You might not realize it yet, but every coordinated move against you only made people curious, and curiosity is dangerous for them. Because the more others watch, the clearer it becomes. You're not the problem. They are. Let me ask you this, chosen one. If they truly believed they were stronger, wouldn't they have faced you one-on-one? Wouldn't they have stood firm without whispers, without alliances, without tricks? The fact that they didn't, the fact that they couldn't, is their confession. They needed a gang to face one soul. They needed numbers to confront authenticity. And that will always be their shame. So while they thought their attack was breaking you, it was really building your legacy. While they thought their jealousy was weakening you, it was actually validating you. And while they thought they were burying you, they were digging their own grave. Because here's the truth that will haunt them forever. Their attack was never about you losing. It was about them losing control over the illusion that they were enough on their own. You became the reminder they could never be. That's what all their energy screamed, even if their words tried to say something else. You became the proof that strength doesn't need a crowd, that presence doesn't need applause, that authenticity doesn't need permission. And in doing so, you exposed them. Every bitter laugh, every jealous glare, every attack was their silent confession. We can't stand next to this person without numbers. They'll never say it out loud, but you don't need them to. Their behavior has already written the confession in stone. They confessed through their fear. They confessed through their envy. They confessed through their need for each other just to feel safe enough to come after you. Their attack was never power. It was panic, and that panic is why they're going down. Number 3. They never counted on your unbreakable stamina. The storm always overestimates its power until it realizes the mountain never moved. That's the confession your enemies are choking on right now, chosen one. They came at you with full confidence, thinking their tricks, whispers, and schemes would topple you in days. They thought you'd fold the way they would if life turned against them, panicking, breaking, retreating into silence. But that was their fatal miscalculation. They assumed you were cut from their fabric of shallow strength, forgetting that your resilience was forged in fires they've never endured. Imagine this, a child building a sandcastle and daring the ocean to wash it away. The waves rush in, crash against it, and it collapses instantly. That's how fragile their endurance is. Now picture a cliff carved by centuries of storms. Every wave hits, but the cliff doesn't move. That's you. They thought you were a castle of sand, when in reality you were stone. Their arrogance blinded them to the truth. You had already survived storms far greater than their jealousy long before they ever showed up. Psychology proves it. Those driven by envy act impulsively. They crave the quick hit, the instant result. They don't plan for the long game because envy doesn't think ahead. It's reactive, short-sighted, desperate. That's why they threw everything at you at once, hoping for a fast collapse. But endurance isn't built overnight. It's written into scars, layered into experience, and sharpened in silence. You had already paid the price for the kind of stamina they can't even imagine. And this is why their frustration keeps boiling. Every time they muttered, "This will finally break them," you stood taller. Every time they smirked, "This will silence them," your voice grew louder. Every time they whispered, "This will ruin their name," your credibility multiplied. Doesn't it sting them, Chosen One, to see their weapons bounce off you like arrows hitting armor they can't pierce? They're realizing something terrifying. Their usual methods don't work on you. Endurance isn't borrowed, it's earned. That's what they'll never understand. They can fake confidence, buy attention, or borrow influence, but they can't fake the kind of strength you've built. They didn't know your story. They only knew their jealousy, and that ignorance destroyed them. They thought they were writing your ending, but they were only exposing their own limits. Now they sit in disbelief, watching the same person they swore would crumble, still rising, still breathing, still unshaken. Their schemes didn't finish you. They revealed the foundation underneath you, and that foundation guarantees their downfall. Because here's the cruel truth. They will run out of tricks long before you ever run out of strength. Number 4. Their alliance was cemented by hate, not power. A house held together by venom will always collapse under its own poison. That's the reality of the group that came against you, Chosen One. On the surface, they might have looked unstoppable, a wall too thick to break through, a circle too tight to infiltrate. But appearances deceive. What held them together wasn't loyalty, wasn't respect, and certainly wasn't real power. Their bond was built on a single shaky foundation: hatred of you. And hatred, no matter how loud it roars, is never strong enough to last. Now imagine this: bricks stacked without mortar. At a distance, it might look like a sturdy wall, but one push, one gust of wind, and the whole thing scatters. That's exactly what their unity was. They didn't trust each other. They didn't even like each other. They only leaned on shared bitterness to pretend they had strength. And the problem with hatred as glue is simple. It's corrosive. It eats away at the very thing it holds together. Psychology proves this. Negative alliances are reactive, not constructive. Groups fueled by envy and resentment burn out fast because they require constant reinforcement. They had to keep whispering, keep plotting, keep feeding each other's anger just to hold their fragile bond in place. Isn't that pathetic, Chosen One? Real unity builds, creates, and grows. Their so-called unity consumed itself in the attempt to destroy you. That's why they looked louder than they truly were, because noise was all they had. What's built on hate cannot survive pressure. The moment the heat rose, their cracks began to show. Every clash of egos, every insecurity, every tiny disagreement weakened them from within. Unlike true alliances built on respect and purpose, theirs only lived as long as you remained their common target. The second you grew beyond their reach, the second their focus wavered, they had nothing binding them anymore. And when that happens, jealous groups always turn on each other. Think of it like firewood stacked too close. At first, the flames look powerful, but eventually the wood burns through, leaving only ash and smoke. That was their alliance, temporary, exhausting, and destined to burn out. They mistook obsession for strength, but obsession consumes itself, and the more they tried to appear solid, the clearer it became that their power was hollow. So here's the truth, Chosen One. Their collapse was never a question of if, but when. Hatred can motivate, but it cannot sustain. It can bind for a moment, but it cannot endure. Their downfall was written the day they built their foundation on envy instead of integrity. And as they fall apart, their failure will scream one undeniable fact to the world. Their alliance was never power, only poison. Number 5. Your very presence unmasked their dependence. The parasite always dies when the host walks away. That's exactly what your enemies never planned for, chosen one. Every word they spoke, every rumor they spread, every scheme they hatched, it was all orbiting around you. They thought they were attacking you, but the truth is, they were feeding off you. Without you, their conversations would have been empty, their sense of importance gone, their fragile egos left starving. Your existence alone became their lifeline, and the more they obsessed over you, the more they confessed that they couldn't survive without you as their point of focus. Now imagine this, a moth circling a flame. It thinks it's controlling its movement, but really, its entire existence has become about chasing what it can't touch. That was them with you. They hovered around your life, mistaking proximity for power, but every orbit only exposed their lack of direction. Isn't it ironic, chosen one, that while they wanted to diminish you, they were really showing the world that you were their center, that their so-called unity and purpose had no meaning unless your name was on their lips? Psychologists call this identity fusion. It's when someone ties their entire sense of self to another person, except in their case, it wasn't love or loyalty that fused them to you. It was envy. Every insult, every scheme, every glare wasn't about building themselves up. It was about trying to leech off the strength they saw in you, hoping some of it would rub off. But here's the cruel twist. They revealed their dependency more with every attempt. The more they whispered, the more they gossiped, the more they plotted, the clearer it became. Without you, they were nothing. Obsession is the loudest admission of weakness. People outside their little circle could see it. Their endless conversations weren't about progress, weren't about creation. They were about you. You became the gravitational pull they couldn't escape, and the more they revolved around you, the more obvious it became that their entire identity was borrowed from your existence. That's not power, that's slavery to their own envy. Meanwhile, you kept moving, chosen one. You built your life without needing their recognition, your victories without requiring their applause. You were independent of their chaos while they were trapped in it. And that's why their dependency is also their downfall. Because when someone spends their life orbiting another, the moment that center shines too bright or moves beyond their reach, collapse is inevitable. So remember this. Every scheme, every jealous act, every desperate attempt to pull you down was never proof of their strength. It was proof of their weakness. You didn't need them to define yourself, but they needed you to even feel alive. And that imbalance is why their downfall is guaranteed. They were addicted to a power they could never contain, and your existence exposed it for the whole world to see. Number 6. They couldn't manufacture what fuels you. A counterfeit can look convincing until the moment it's tested. That's the curse of your enemy's chosen one. Jealous groups thrive on imitation. They study, they copy, they stalk every move you make, hoping if they mirror your walk, your tone, your energy, they'll finally tap into what you have. But here's the brutal truth. They can never replicate what fuels you. Because what you carry doesn't come from applause, from luck, or from borrowed tricks. It comes from a source they can't touch. Think about it. A parrot can repeat words, but it will never carry the meaning behind them. That's what their imitation looks like, noise without depth. They can rehearse your gestures, mimic your work, even copy your style. But the moment life applies pressure, the difference screams out. They break where you stand firm. They scatter where you endure. Their replicas collapse because imitation has no roots. And here's the irony. The harder they try to be you, the more obvious the gap becomes. People can feel authenticity. It radiates in ways that cannot be faked. That's why their energy always feels hollow, why their presence never lands the way yours does. They're reacting while you're creating. They're performing while you're existing. And the more they copy, the more they broadcast their dependency on your originality. The source of power is invisible, but its effects are undeniable. You've been sustained by a foundation that doesn't crumble under opinion, envy, or pressure. That's what terrifies them. They keep playing a game at surface level, thinking tactics and numbers can outdo depth. But you've been playing from a level they don't even see. Every time they launch a scheme, it falls flat because they're fighting against something unassailable. Imagine this: two houses standing side by side, one built on hollow plaster, painted to look strong, the other on solid stone, unshaken by storms. At a glance, they both might impress, but the moment the winds hit, one shatters, the other stands. That's the metaphor of your life versus theirs. Their foundation is borrowed, yours is untouchable, and that's why, chosen one, they'll always fail. They can chase shadows, but you are the original. They can try to replicate, but you remain the blueprint. Their obsession doesn't weaken you, it only proves what you carry can't be copied, stolen, or diminished. And that truth alone guarantees their downfall. Number 7. Their scheme. Backfired under the spotlight of exposure. The harder they try to hide their envy, the louder it screams in public. That's the law they never accounted for, chosen one, the law of exposure. When they formed their little alliance against you, they believed secrecy made them powerful. Whispered plans, hushed rumors, private smears, every move they made felt calculated, untouchable. But the truth is simple. The moment they united against one person, they dragged themselves into the spotlight. Their actions became a trail of evidence, and every jealous whisper became a megaphone exposing their weakness. Now imagine this: thieves creeping through a dark room, convinced nobody can see them, but in their panic to corner you, they trip over lamps, slam doors, and suddenly the entire neighborhood is awake, watching their every move. That's what jealousy does. It makes people reckless. Their hatred for you was so consuming that they forgot nothing stays hidden for long. Their strategy wasn't silent strength, it was a spotlight glaring down on their insecurities. Power isn't in numbers, it's in integrity. They believed ganging up meant dominance, but unity built on envy only amplifies failure. Every lie they told, every cruel jab they made, every scheme they whispered became proof, not of your weakness, but of their desperation. Psychology even proves it. Collective obsession creates patterns so obvious that outsiders can't miss them. The more they circled you, the more people began to notice the obsession. And curiosity always turns into questions. Why are they so focused on this one person? What makes this individual so threatening? And just like that, their strategy exposed what they feared most: your significance. Think about it, chosen one. If you were ordinary, would they need secret meetings? Would they burn all that energy just to coordinate against you? Of course not. Their unity became their downfall because every attempt at control left fingerprints, sloppy lies, exaggerated reactions, visible cracks. The very energy they spent trying to bury you only radiated back, lighting up their own flaws. The law of exposure is undefeated. Obsession always reveals itself. That's the paradox they'll never escape. In trying to erase your presence, they highlighted it. In trying to conceal their fear, they broadcasted it. In trying to break you, they marked themselves. By choosing to target you collectively, they made themselves the story. And stories built on desperation always end the same way: collapse. Their downfall isn't waiting on your reaction. Chosen one. It was written the moment they placed you at the center of their obsession. Now their cracks are visible, their weakness undeniable, and their exposure irreversible. Number 8. Their hatred became your spotlight. Every rumor they spread was free advertising they didn't know they were paying for. That's the irony they'll never admit, chosen one. Their jealousy didn't bury you, it broadcasted you. Instead of silencing your name, they became the megaphone, shouting it into every corner they could reach. They thought their slander was your downfall, but all they really did was write your marketing campaign, line by line, whisper by whisper. Imagine this: a group trying to stamp out a fire by fanning it harder and harder. Their every move only makes the flames spread wider, brighter, hotter. That's exactly what their obsession did. They couldn't contain their envy in silence. It spilled over into conversations, gossip chains, group chats, and social feeds. And every time they mentioned you, they dragged more eyes to your name. Doesn't it sting them that they became the reason strangers who never knew you now can't stop thinking about you? Jealousy doesn't operate quietly. It always leaves echoes. The breadcrumbs of their gossip turned into trails that curious minds followed. People noticed how much energy they poured into you, and energy doesn't lie. If you were irrelevant, they wouldn't waste their breath. But the sheer force of their fixation screamed to everyone around them, "This person matters." And the more they tried to twist your image, the more obvious it became that something about you disrupted their entire world. Here's the paradox. While they thought they were throwing dirt on your name, they were actually planting seeds of curiosity. Every exaggeration, every smear, every whispered lie only made people wonder, why are they so obsessed with this one person? What makes them so powerful that a whole group can't let them go? Their hatred turned into intrigue, and intrigue turned into fascination. They became your publicists, chosen one, not because they wanted to, but because their envy wouldn't let them stay quiet. And look at the outcome. Your name now carries weight, synonymous with resilience, authenticity, and strength. Even the negativity they aimed at you couldn't erase that. It amplified it. People are drawn to what others obsess over, and their obsession confirmed your impact louder than any campaign could. In trying to bury you, they made you unavoidable. That's the ultimate twist of irony. Their fixation highlighted you, their energy elevated you, and their jealousy guaranteed you couldn't be ignored. They became your unwilling promoters, and every word they used against you turned into proof of your significance. They didn't hide you, chosen one. They put you under the brightest spotlight they could find. Number 9. They misread the power hidden in your solitude. Isolation is only a prison to the weak. To the strong, it's a forge. That's the brutal truth they never understood, chosen one. They thought that cutting you off would break you, that stripping you of support and recognition would reduce you to nothing. In their minds, silence would starve you, loneliness would shatter you, and the absence of their approval would erase you. But their calculation was flawed from the start, because isolation doesn't weaken the unshakable. It sharpens them. Now imagine this: iron left alone in the fire. To the untrained eye, it looks like it's being destroyed, swallowed by flames. But in reality, it's being reforged into steel, harder and stronger than before. That's what their scheme did to you. They mistook solitude for suffocation, when in truth, it became your crucible. Without their noise, their fake alliances and their manipulations, you finally had space to breathe. Their attempt to cut you off only stripped away distractions and revealed clarity. What they meant as punishment became your preparation. That's the paradox they'll never forgive themselves for. While they gathered in circles obsessing over you, you were quietly building a foundation they couldn't touch. They were wasting energy trying to shrink your presence, but you were investing time in strengthening your spirit. They wanted you fragile, but every moment alone was teaching you resilience. Ask yourself this: why would they think being alone makes you powerless? Because for them, solitude is unbearable. They need noise, validation, and groupthink to feel alive. But you thrived without it. They underestimated the kind of insight that grows in silence, the ability to see through patterns, anticipate schemes, and move with precision. While they thought isolation was burying you, it was refining you, chosen one. It was sharpening your instincts into blades they could never blunt. Solitude is the teacher that envy can't silence. By the time they realized their trap wasn't working, it was too late. You had already emerged stronger, clearer, and untouchable. Their whispers only proved how ineffective they were against someone who doesn't depend on external applause. Their greatest miscalculation was assuming aloneness equals weakness, when in reality it revealed the depth of your strength. They confined you, but you turned the confinement into clarity. They isolated you, but you transformed the isolation into insight. They wanted you broken, but you walked out as proof that solitude doesn't diminish the chosen. It forges them. And that's why Chosen One, their tactic of isolation, guaranteed not your downfall, but their own. Number 10. They never calculated the cost of striking at purity. Throwing mud at a clear mirror doesn't dirty the mirror. It only shows who has the dirty hands. That's the reality your enemies never understood. Chosen One. When they came after you, they assumed it would play out like it always does when corrupt people clash. Dirt covering dirt, lies masking lies, chaos blending into chaos. But you weren't built like them. You carried integrity. You stood clean, and the danger of targeting purity is that every attack ricochets back, exposing the filth of the attacker rather than staining the target. Think about it. Attacking someone already corrupt is easy. There's no shock when a liar is accused of lying, no scandal when the dishonest are exposed for more dishonesty. But when they aimed their jealousy at you, they aimed at someone whose steadiness, authenticity, and truth stood in stark contrast to their bitterness. And in doing so, they signed their own confession. Every rumor they spread, every smear they whispered, every scheme they built became a neon sign pointing at their own envy and insecurity. Now imagine this: a torch thrown at a pool of water. The fire doesn't consume the water. It hisses, sputters, and dies out, revealing the weakness of the hand that threw it. That's exactly how their attacks landed. They thought they were smothering your light, but every strike only showed the world how desperate, small, and hollow they truly were. Attacking innocence is the fastest way to reveal guilt. The moment they targeted you, their flaws became impossible to hide. They thought they were building a narrative against you, but the universe flipped the script. Their energy, their obsession, their reckless plotting, it was all driven by weakness, not strength. And the more they escalated, the more transparent they became. People watching could see it. Their envy didn't conceal their character. It broadcasted it. Their every move was a reflection of the very corruption they wanted to disguise. Ask yourself this, chosen one, why would anyone invest so much in trying to destroy what is steady and clean? Because your purity was the mirror they couldn't bear to face. You didn't expose them with words. They exposed themselves with their obsession. And here lies the deepest irony. In their desperate attempts to bury you, they unearthed their own corruption for the world to see. Targeting purity comes with a price, and it is never paid by the pure. That's the law they ignored. Your foundation didn't need defending. It was unshakable. Their blows collapsed under their own weight, because truth doesn't crumble, it endures. In striking at you, they struck at themselves, and the cost of their envy will forever remain theirs to pay. Number 11. They confused your silence with defeat. The lion doesn't roar at every jackal. It waits, then strikes once. That's the truth they never understood, chosen one. While they shouted, schemed, and scrambled to paint you as weak, you stayed still, watching, learning, calculating. They mistook your quiet for surrender, your patience for fear. And that assumption was the very trap they set for themselves. Silence is never empty. Silence is strategy. You didn't need to answer every insult or defend yourself against their petty performances. Why? Because your worth doesn't come from their recognition, and your power doesn't need their approval. Every second they wasted trying to provoke you, you were storing energy, sharpening insight, and letting them expose themselves piece by piece. Now imagine this, a storm thrashing at a mountain. The winds howl, the trees bend, the chaos roars, but the mountain never moves. That was you. They believed noise equals strength, but their noise only revealed how frantic and predictable they were. Every lie, every exaggeration, every attempt to corner you became a roadmap of their desperation. You didn't need to react. You simply let them write their own downfall in plain sight. Sometimes silence is the sharpest weapon in the room. That's what they overlooked. Your calm didn't weaken your position. It strengthened it. While they exhausted themselves screaming for attention, you built credibility in stillness. People watching saw the difference. They noticed who held composure and who spiraled into chaos. They noticed the one who didn't flinch while the crowd tried to shake them. And that contrast was devastating for your enemies. It made their noise look smaller, pettier, and emptier. Ask yourself, chosen one, why would they keep shouting louder if your silence wasn't intimidating them? Because deep down, they knew they couldn't move you. Their volume was proof of their fear. Your quiet presence commanded a weight they could never match, no matter how many voices they gathered. By the time they realized your silence wasn't weakness, but discipline, it was too late. They had already drained themselves, revealed their insecurities, and handed you the advantage without you lifting a finger. Their frantic attempts cornered no one but themselves. The quiet one always has the last word. And in your case, chosen one, your silence roared louder than anything they could ever scream. You didn't need to fight. They dismantled themselves while you waited, steady and unshaken. And that's why, in the end, your silence became the most dangerous sound of all. Number 12. They forged their own chains of defeat. The trap they built for you was always waiting for them. That's the brutal irony they never calculated, chosen one. Every rumor, every scheme, every whispered plan, they thought these were weapons sharpened to cut you down. But those very blades were double-edged, and now they slice deeper into their own reputation than they ever cut into yours. Their obsession didn't just expose them, it condemned them. Think about it. Lies never stay buried. They always resurface, and when they do, they drag the liar's name with them. Every smear campaign they launched against you has become a receipt of their corruption. Every manipulation they engineered is now evidence stamped against their character. They believed envy could be disguised as strategy, but strategy built on bitterness is nothing more than a slow poison. And they drank it themselves. Imagine this, an archer who pulls back their bow, aiming straight at you, certain the arrow will pierce. But the bowstring snaps and the arrow ricochets back into their own chest. That's their story. They thought they were hunters, but every weapon they crafted carried their fingerprints. Every false narrative became a mirror reflecting their dishonesty. Every rumor became a chain tightening around their own necks. The punishment for envy is baked into the act itself. That's why their downfall was inevitable. They weren't just attacking you, they were writing their own confession in real time, and no matter how much they scrambled to deny, deflect, or rewrite history, the truth lingers. Their energy doesn't vanish, it calcifies, becoming the evidence of their obsession. Each denial, each cover-up, each desperate attempt to mask the lies only amplifies the original sin. Ask yourself this: what kind of strength is it if they need constant scheming to sustain it? The answer is none. They had no foresight, no discipline, no conscience, only envy. And envy is a curse that never stays contained. It circles back, louder and heavier, until it crushes the ones who fed it. The weapons they forged for you were never yours to fear. They were theirs to carry. That's why you survived, and they are unraveling. Their strategies were never built to last. They collapse under the weight of their own malice. In trying to bury you, they buried themselves. In trying to break you, they exposed every crack in their own foundation. And now, chosen one, their so-called weapons stand as monuments of their punishment, not because you struck back, but because the universe always ensures that envy destroys itself from within. Their downfall was always written, not in your response, but in their obsession. Chosen one, you've seen it clearly. Every scheme, every jealous whisper, every attack they launched only revealed their weakness and your unstoppable strength. Their downfall was sealed the moment they targeted you. Because what's pure, resilient, and original cannot be destroyed. If this message struck a chord with you, press the like button if you haven't already. And if you're still not part of our family, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Together, we spread truth, strength, and light into places that need it most. Stay strong, chosen one. The story isn't ending here, it's only beginning.